So we're going to start out by going over pattern pieces, what's changed and what stays the same. So the first thing that stays the same is the crossbody strap. And you can see I already went ahead and put this crossbody strap together, did my stitching. I did do a double line of stitching here, just felt like 2 lines of stitching that day. Next thing that's not going to change are your little strap connectors. So I went ahead and did these as well, and I went ahead and stitched them, and same as always, nothing changed there. Okay, but what has changed is I increased the main pieces. Okay, so this is the front and the back. I added 2 inches to the height, and I added 2 inches to the width. I kept the cutouts the same size. Okay, so the depth of this bag is going to remain unchanged. So in addition, I also took 2 inches off the height of the stabilizer and 2 inches off the width of the stabilizer. So just look at the cutting chart and then make those changes accordingly. 2 inches taller, 2 inches wider. The other thing that changed is the upper lining pieces. They're also 2 inches longer. The height is the same because our depth is the same on the bag. So I added 2 inches and also added 2 inches to the stabilizer before I adhered it on the back. So the other thing that changed is the zipper placket. So the height of the zipper placket is exactly the same as before, but the width changed by 2 inches. So I just added 2 inches to this length on both the lining and the main pieces. And of course, this doesn't have any stabilizer on the back. All of my lining does have woven interfacing. It's the classic fuse. But this particular, and I do actually have Decaville Light now. I found some. I have a little bit in stock for me, so I'm super excited about that. So the Decaville Light is on the back of all of the main pieces. All of my little pocket pieces and my key fob remain unchanged. So that's just whatever the pattern said. Same thing with my interior zipper pockets and my interior slip pocket. That's all the same. Nothing different there. The exterior zipper pockets I did change. So because the pocket, it can be wider and also can be a little deeper because we increased the width and height of the bag, what I did to this piece is I added 2 inches to the width and only 1 inch to the height. Okay, so 2 to the width, 1 to the height, and of course 2 pieces. And this is not going to be an exterior zipper pocket, it's going to be an exterior slip pocket on this bag, but I wanted to make sure I had plenty of pocket to stitch with. My lining pieces, of course, had to change as well, and these pieces are 2 inches wider and 2 inches taller. Again, classic fuse on the back, and then my cutouts are exactly the same as they are in the original Burcham pattern. The Decaville Heavy that goes on the bottom, once we sew everything together, is 2 inches longer. Okay, so to this width, to the length, add 2 inches, height remains the same. Now, for the flap, what I did is we have a flap piece on our website. It's a free piece, and it's for the Kirsten hack, is what we call it. And it's pretty long, okay, it's pretty wide. So what I did was I cut it in half right down the center, and I just overlapped until this entire piece is 8.5 inches long, okay, or the width here. So 8.5 inches. So it ended up overlapping. It looks like it's about a little over an inch, but just cut it in half, lay it on your table on your cutting mat until it's 8.5 inches, and then go ahead and tape it. Whenever you have a pattern piece like this that you want to change the size of, you always want to cut it down the middle, because if you take it off one end or the other end, of course it's going to change the shape. We don't want to do that. And so adjustments are easily made by cutting it down the middle. So I went ahead and cut 2 flat pieces, and I'm using the black suede. And of course I had to change the size of the stabilizer as well. So the stabilizer, I went ahead and it's actually a 1/2 inch from the top and a 1/4 inch from all the side edges. So I just made sure that that measurement was correct and put it on here, made the changes to adhere it to this. Now we do have a 1/2 inch at the top, so make sure when you adhere this, you're not adhering it centered. You're actually adhering it a 1/2 inch from the top edge, which should make it 1/4 of an inch from all the other edges. And of course, we do have 2 flat pieces. Okay, so that is all the changes. Not much, just a few length and width changes to a few of the pieces. And so from here, what I'm going to do is put the lining together. The lining is not any different than the lining on your bag. Zipper placket's going to be the same, so I'll go ahead and do the zipper placket piece, and then I'll do all of my lining pocket pieces. I'm going to do all that off camera. Super easy to do. You've seen me do these pieces 100 times, and go ahead and get the lining together. And then we are going to make the measurements and do everything we need to get the exterior of this bag together, because that's the main thing that changes. Okay, I have the lining completed. Everything's good to go in here. I've got, of course, my zipper pocket installed. I've got my slip pocket installed here on the other side. We have the zipper plackets ready to go. So I'm just going to stick this aside. Of course, I left my bottom open, and I also left the bottom of the pocket open so we can turn the bag. So before I go any further with the exterior, I want to get this flap done. So I'm going to put the flap pieces right sides together and put a few Wonder Clips on here. And we're going to stitch this using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to leave the top open. So I'm going to make sure I stitch it from the side where the deck of the light is, so that I don't stitch on top of the deck of the light. And even when I stitch this, I'm going to stitch just a little bit off that stabilizer. Okay, you don't want to stitch right up to it, because if you do, when you turn this, you're really going to be able to see your stitches. They're going to want to pull apart on the inside. I'm going to just go ahead and clip these corners, and then we will turn this. Okay, from here I'm going to top stitch using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance around. I'm going to wait to close this though, because I think I want to put my bag tag here on the front. I do want to put a bag tag here, but I also need to put the magnetic snap in. So on the back side, I'm going to measure my straight section and measure about a 1/2 inch up and make a mark to install the magnetic snap. So I'm going to place the washer centered right there. Just make a little dot in the center, make sure it looks centered, which it does. And then go ahead and draw the little lines. Make sure I put something in here so I don't cut my front side. It's actually not even reaching down, so I'll just very carefully go ahead and cut a couple of holes. Now, you typically want to put the male portion of the snap on the flaps. So I will do that. And then I'm going to put a little piece of Deckable Heavy, install the washer, and then I'll put a piece of tape or something over this to protect it. Okay, so I have the flap completed, and I went ahead and put my bag tag on the front here. So from here, you can go ahead and base the top closed. It's up to you if you want to do that. In the end, this is going to get stuck into the top of the hole, so it's not going to really show, but it might be good to go ahead and base that closed. So from here, we're going to go ahead and cut the hole for this to go into. So you want to find the center of the front of the bag. which I've done already. And we want to make sure that the opening is going to be about the same width as this piece. Makes sense, right? So I actually drew that in before I put my stabilizer on, and I can see where those lines are. So what I did was came down, I give you a measurement of the pattern, you know, come down that far. You're going to basically make a 1/2 inch opening. And then the width, you obviously want this centered, this flap centered. You know, the width's going to be, this should be about 8 inches, roughly. And so don't just assume, go ahead and double check it and make sure it fits within the lines that you're going to cut. So once you know where that is, go ahead and use a ruler and a craft knife to cut. Now I like to cut my openings this way because I can get the point right in the corner and I'm not going to overcut it all. Tiny little snip I need to make with scissors right here. Now, if you want to edge paint this before you proceed, you can certainly do that. We're just going to leave this open. We're not going to stitch anything right sides together and flip or anything like that. So essentially what we're going to do is this this flap is going to slide in like this, and then we'll be able to reach in and to then get into this pocket. Now you can do this in so many different ways. You don't have to do it this way. You know, if you want to try to do this where you do wrong sides or wrong side of the flap to the right side of the, or right sides together, I should say, and then flip it down and top stitch, you could certainly do that as well. And as I'm thinking through this, you kind of learn in my thought process as I go through these things. Do I want to do that? I think I might want to do that. I kind of like the look of that. So I'm going to start by basting this closed, and then we're going to get our pocket pieces and actually start stitching the pocket pieces to this piece. Okay, so now we have our flap, we have our hole cut out, and we have our pocket pieces that are going to end up getting stitched in. So the first thing we want to do is turn this over to the wrong side, and let's place some double-sided tape along this edge. I'm going to peel the backing off that tape. And I'm going to take the pocket, I'm going to put the pocket right side, the right side of the pocket on the wrong side of the pocket piece. And you can see this is the bottom of my pocket piece. I want it to go opposite of what you think. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and lay it right here against that double-sided tape. Now from here, go ahead and fold this pocket down. And you want it, of course, outside that seam so that when you look from the front, you can't see it. However, when we top stitch this down, it's going to go ahead and top stitch this in place. And I'm just going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch. Let me make sure that my sides are down as well. And when I say my sides, I mean these little sides right here. I just want to make sure those are tucked under as well. So now when I top stitch, I am going to only go about 1/8 of an inch beyond this point, and we're just doing the bottom right now. Okay, so I'm just going to, and you can take a ruler and measure that and make sure that you start at about 1/8 of an inch, because what we're going to do is once we stitch across here, we're going to make sure we start in that same hole to go up, across, and down when we get ready to do the flap. Okay, so just start at 1/8 of an inch, pull your threads through the back, tie a knot, and we're going to go all the way to the other side. Since I'm tying my threads off, I want to go ahead and make sure that I have my bobbin thread up. There we go. All right. Leave my threads long and then go ahead and tie these threads off. Now what I'm going to actually do is to come to this side and pull them through here and tie them off so that you don't see them at all. So I'm just going to grab that stitch right there. And then you don't have to worry about burning threads or anything because the stitch is totally hidden. Okay, I'm going to pull the thread through on the other side here and do the same thing. Okay, so now that this part is complete, this is what I have, basically the front of the pocket attached. And you can just see one line of stitching here on the bottom. So let's turn this over. We're going to put some double-sided tape along this top edge. And I'm going to put it both on this side and on this side. So on the back side, let's peel the backing off the tape. And we're going to take the pocket piece and we're just going to lay it right on top of this pocket. So essentially pocket pieces are right side together and we just want to make sure that the pockets are aligned from side to side and that the pocket reaches above the opening, obviously on this side, okay? So essentially, here's what we have, okay? Here's our opening. You can see our pocket in the back. And then we're going to peel the backing off of here. And I'm going to take my flat piece and I'm going to lay it so that the right side of the flap is on the right side of the bag. I'm going to center it right along the edge. So now what we're going to do is, from the right side, go ahead and pick up where we left off on our stitching. We're going to stitch up, across, and by stitching across, we're catching the pocket underneath and we're also catching the flap. And then we're going to come down this side and hook up with the original stitch here where we left off, okay? So just basically from stitch all the way around to the other stitch, and all of this is going to get stitched in place. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn this over, and now I'm going to pull my stitches through to the back of this pocket and tie them off. Okay, so I have my threads tied off. The next thing we need to do is to go ahead and trim our pocket piece. So this is kind of like a zipper pocket. You're putting one pocket piece higher than the other, so whenever you do that, you're always going to have some left over here at the bottom. So I'm going to just trim that off. And we're going to close this pocket on all three sides, okay, because we're not going to use this pocket at all when we turn our bag. So I'm just going to turn this over to the right side. I'm going to pull this back, go ahead and stitch down, and turn, come across, and then stitch up the other side. Okay, so now we have an official completed pocket, okay, a nice deep pocket here in the front. So we're going to take the flap and we're going to fold it over, and then I'm going to stitch right on top of this flap right here, just right along this edge. Now that's going to help hold this closed. You're still going to be able to get in and out. And I'm thinking about this as I go. I think that's what that's going to do is hide this seam just a tad, and I think it's just going to look better when the pocket opens up. So I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch along this fold and just go ahead and stitch. It doesn't matter, just go ahead and stitch through the back because you're stitching above your previous stitch line or right about at it. So it's not going to come into play with your pocket at all. And it's just going to give you a really nice finished look here. Okay, so here we go. So now the pocket flap is stitched all the way around and we have a cool slip pocket here. So of course the last thing we need to do is make sure we put the bottom half of our magnetic snap in. And the easiest way to do that is going to be to just mark it with a silver marking pen and go ahead and attach the female portion. Okay, so you can just, what I do sometimes is you put a little bit of silver on here and just go ahead and push it down, and then you can see where the mark is, and then you can just install it from there. And then of course that just wipes right off your hardware. Now, when you do this, do not put the magnet through your pocket. Okay, you're gonna have to make sure that you hold this up so that you do not accidentally cut through your pocket. So I'm actually gonna put a board down here so I don't make that mistake. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish installing this snap and then just put a little piece of tape over it to protect the pocket. So here we go, magnetic snap. Got a little bit of silver marking pen on here I'll have to get off. Pocket. So we're going to continue on making the Burcham, and from here it's pretty much the same. So I'm going to, and I mean the same as when you make the Burcham. So I'm going to first go ahead and clip this bottom. Of course you have your flap here, so when we do the sides you may have to pull them over just a tad because you've got some bulk in here now that you're not used to having. But we'll go ahead and stitch this, and then we're going to open up the seam and stitch down both sides. So just go ahead and open up your seam allowance and then top stitch on the right of the seam and to the left of the seam. Okay, so here we have the seam stitched. And of course, at this point, you don't have any stabilizer down here. So that's when we need to take our bottom stabilizer piece. I'm going to go to my iron and I'm going to just go ahead and center this side to side and go ahead and adhere it on. Now you're gonna have a small space between your main stabilizer, basically your Decovil Light, and your Decovil Heavy. And that's so that when you stand this up, you get a nice crisp edge there. It gives it space to turn. Okay, so it should be somewhere about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm gonna go adhere this and then we'll continue. On my crossbody bags, I typically do not put purse feet. So if you want purse feet, now's the time to do it. I would probably put 4 purse feet on here if I was going to, and you can just go ahead and do a little bit of measuring. I usually put the purse feet 1 inch from the stabilizer. So 1 inch from the long side and usually about either 1 inch or 1.5 inches in from the short sides. Now, while your bag is warm, you can go ahead and kind of crease the seams where it's going to fold out. That just kind of helps form it a little bit. So I used a Teflon sheet and just went ahead to get that on. Okay, so from here we're going to go ahead and put our sides together. So I'm just going to put some Wonder Clips on here. We're going to stitch. You notice when I stitch, I always start from the top edge. I do that on purpose because I want to make sure the top edges match. That's the most important edge to match. If you get down to the bottom and things are off a little bit, that can easily be fixed in the box corner. Actually didn't quite get to the top here. Didn't backstitch all the way up, so I'll do that now. And then I like to open up the seams. So I'm going to use some 1/2" double-sided tape here. You can use really any kind of tape or glue that you want to use. It's really up to you. I don't particularly like to cut these seams back because I feel like then the little seam just sticks out into the side of the bag when you're trying to get it to lay flat, and I really just don't particularly like that. So I like to use some double-sided tape. And I just put it right along the seams. And since I'm using a 1/2" seam allowance, the 1/2" double-sided tape works perfect. And I'm just going to peel the backing off this tape and open up these seams. And of course, once you do that, the corners about box themselves. All you have to do is put a couple of wonder clips in there, match up the seams. And this is one of the reasons why the Burcham is so versatile and it can be used for so many hacks, is because it's really just a boxed bottom bag. It's not a difficult bag. There's no gusset. It's all straight lines. I actually usually cut my Burchams from measurements. I don't even use the pattern pieces. And so it really makes it a nice, easy bag to do a lot of cool things with. I mean, when you look back at all of the different hacks we've done over the years with this bag, with this pattern, there's so much you can do with just one pattern and adding just a little bit of length, width, you know, changing up the pocket a little bit. You get a totally different looking kind of bag. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and just stitch the box corners. And whenever I do that, I always have my bag standing up and just kind of fold this back and stitch from the front side or the top side. And get my pocket out of the way. Now, if you were going to do 2 seams, this would be the place to do it. A lot of times I will do an extra seam just to the right of the seam I just did. Okay, once that's completed, go ahead and just trim these seam allowances back. And you want to trim it pretty close to the seam. And then we can turn the bag. So I'm going to do that off camera real quick, get it turned, and then we'll come back. Okay, and here is the bag turned. So I'm going to take my lining and slide it in. Now, when I did my lining, I did take my seams a little bit larger on the sides to help avoid a baggy lining. I also did trim my seam allowances back on my lining, but I left the very top edge long so that I could open it. And I'm going to start there and clip my top edge. Go to the other side, do the same thing. And so this is going to be a tight fit. It's going to be a tight fit because I took a smaller seam allowance on my lining, and also because we have a flap in there, remember. And the flap is, you know, takes up some space. And so now I'm going to go ahead and stitch the lining to the exterior of the bag. And what I do is just stitch a little bit, make sure I have a nice straight piece in front of me to stitch. So basically, I'm just making sure this is nice and straight. And then when it starts to not be straight anymore, I just stop, readjust, and stitch again. Okay, so now that that is stitched, I'm going to go ahead and turn the bag. Do not cut your seam allowance back, okay? It's going to be a lot easier to top stitch if you've got some bulk underneath there. If you try to cut it to 1/8 and then turn this and then top stitch, it can get a little tough because as you're trying to stitch, you have an uneven edge this way. Okay, you have like one high edge and one low edge, where if you've got the full 1/2 inch and you're stitching 1/8 of an inch, then you have a nice even edge from right to left on your presser foot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this and then we will continue. Okay, so the bag is turned and here's what we have. Now, I haven't finished it off yet. From here, you're just going to go ahead and finish off the bag just like you would with the regular Burcham pattern. And we have that linked below so you can go ahead and follow along. But you can see, you know, the front, the back. And theoretically, you could have put the zipper pocket in the back here if you wanted to, and then just did the same thing up here on the top with the slip pocket. And I think that would have been a really cool feature. So you see you have a nice, big, huge slip pocket here. You have a little bit of character to this bag. I would consider a large crossbody with the actual changes that I made. And let's take a look and see how big this ended up. So it is 10 inches wide. It is about 9.5 inches tall. And then the depth did not change. The depth is still 3 inches. So for those of you who really wanted a larger Burcham, I know some people have asked me about it, this is a great way to do it. Okay, just go ahead and add accordingly and you can make it as big as you would like. And then of course this pocket is just a really cool feature, something different. I'm going to just go ahead and finish up the bag like normal, and I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial.